Could former Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba be investigated and prosecuted based on allegations made by his estranged wife, Nomachile Mngoma? An updated, corrected version of the State Capture Commission report includes analysis of Gigaba's and Mngoma's evidence last year. In this version, the Commission recommends that law enforcement investigate that evidence and consider possibly prosecuting him on charges of corruption over cash payments from the Guptas 9 years ago. The report recommends investigations with the possibility of prosecution for corruption and racketeering to establish whether Gigaba was given money for his wedding and a trip to Dubai, renovations to his father's house and other gifts and gratuities. Legal analyst and attorney Modidima Mannya joins me now to share his perspective. Good evening and welcome. It would seem that the only way to test the veracity of Mngoma's version against the denials from Gigaba can only be resolved by investigating. Would you concur?
Yes, certainly. In any event, anybody who has to appear in court would have to first go through an investigation by the police, who prepare a docket and submit it to the National Prosecuting Authority. So it is in that context that they would have to determine whether there can be proof of the cash payments.
So just a question, though, and this is a thought, and a concept people are raising, and the inside of the courts better. How does the court generally view testimony or evidence between scorned and estranged spouses and partners?
Yes, I mean, there are only exceptions to that, but the Criminal Procedure Act does provide that a wife can give evidence against the husband. Except, there's a difference between the Act talks about competent, which means you can, and compellable, that means you can be forced to give the evidence. So she would, in the current circumstances, be competent and compellable because it doesn't relate to a maintenance matter or any matter relating to harm against her.
How have you seen, and maybe just share, from your vantage point, similar cases play out in court before?
Well, look, nothing comes to mind immediately, but, I think this case might be a bit complicated. Remember, the allegation here is that Mr. Gigaba received cash payments. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how that is going to be proven, because it seems like it's between her and his ex-wife who knows how much he received and when he received it. Obviously, it doesn't mean that her evidence cannot be proven. I think there would probably be instances where Mr. Gigaba is not going to be able to explain how he funded some of the activities based on his income. So I think it's a matter of intensive investigation that is going to determine whether he can actually be prosecuted and if there is adequate evidence to prosecute.
I mean, certainly, as you point out, it's going to be very hard in cash transactions to try and make that connection and really keenly lay out that architecture of gratuity after Mngoma told the Commission that she paid for all the expenses, like her wedding, which was estimated at between 4 and 5 million rand in cash. I mean, I can only imagine, and we saw during the Commission what $1 million in cash looks like, just exactly how that money would have changed hands if it indeed did. Just a question, how much has she implicated herself in these matters, and how liable could she possibly be personally?
Well, from her evidence, she was there when the money exchanged hands, and she has actually testified that she benefited. But she has not said that she was an active participant. She was just a passive spouse who benefited from the alleged wrongdoing of her husband. Obviously, it may as well be that she stands to be charged, but she has already given evidence, so I suspect that she may turn state witness if she is charged. But I don't think the state would charge her because she would probably be the most reliable witness that they need. So I don't see how she's going to get entangled in this matter.
Modidima, just a quick one on the taking of certain aspects of the Commission's recommendations and findings on review, and how much of a delay that could possibly, or how much of an obstacle it could be to any investigation. What's the process with regard to that from your experience?
Well, look, what would happen is that if I were to be implicated and be unhappy, I would file an application at court to review and set aside the findings or whatever recommendations are made against me. And that would follow the normal High Court process, filing of papers, heads of arguments, and the judgment. But what I think is not going to be taken away is the power of the police to investigate. Remember, the findings and recommendations of the commissions are just what they are. They are findings and recommendations. They are not binding on anybody. But if the police become aware of crime, nothing precludes them from investigating. Now, nobody will be able to get a court order that says the police cannot investigate him or her based on the findings of the State Capture Commission.
Very, very interesting perspective, and thank you for sharing it with us. Legal analyst and attorney Modidima Mannya.